All right.
Mhm.
So, Doc, I think that you're probably a bit more controversial than you probably would give yourself credit for,
Mm. Mhm.
because because love is radical. You know,
Mm.
love is very radical, and so you have this saying that has stuck with me.
Mhm.
That while I've been in your presence, you've said it a couple times. Over the course of time, and that is that all behavior is, give it to me again. So all behavior is a function of
Positive intention.
positive intention,
Mhm.
positive intention. And the interesting thing about it is that I mentioned that to one of my friends recently, and he said, "You're gonna have to explain that one to me. I don't know about, I don't know if I agree with that." And so what I gather from it is that it's a matter of digging beneath the surface
Mhm.
and going a few layers down,
Mhm.
in order to really see what lies beneath. So,
It's a good analogy.
thank you.
Mhm.
So can you tell me a little bit about that statement, that belief?
Mhm. Well, all intentions are about us trying to meet some needs. Other people are part of the occasion, but we're trying to meet needs to satisfy our own needs, issues to satisfy our own needs. One very common way of looking at it is that with the psychologist Abraham Maslow. He had a hierarchy of needs. And on the bottom of that, he had physiological needs: food, clothing, shelter. That's some basic needs. Mhm. His theory was if you don't take care of the basic ones, people don't get to the higher needs. Okay. So over those physiological needs, the next level was safety. We all have a need to feel safe, secure, like that. And beyond that one was love and belonging. We all have a need to connect, to be accepted, understood, to belong to someone, and to um, feel some love. And beyond that was self-esteem. We all have a need to feel good about ourselves, to feel productive, worthy, um, to feel like we are valued. And at the top of that pyramid, is self-actualization. Self-actualization, that's when one starts to understand who they are, why they are like they are, what their purpose and mission is, um, understand each other, themselves in a higher context like that. So when we say everybody has positive intentions, everybody's trying to meet those needs, although we do it in a lot of, for lack of a better word, crazy ways. Hmm? We do it in a lot of ways. Some of us may do it by meet self-esteem needs by being nice to other people, and others may do it by being mean to other people. You know, depending on background, perception, how that person may cognize or think about the world and their relationship to it. Hmm? To some extent, we are all acting out everything that's ever happened to us.
Hmm.
Everything that's ever happened to us helps shape our perception of the world.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean you can't influence that, you know, because for instance, if you've been traumatized, that may give you a fear of something. And that fear you may manifest as defensiveness or aggression or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But as you heal, you find other ways to incorporate that experience of being traumatized into your experience.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. So I guess my question is, as it pertains to the people that we interact with, right, who have this behavior which can be in some ways harmful to us, and we are often, acting in a as we're acting with the function of self-preservation, right? So accepting that to be true, that when you dig beneath the surface, these people that might in some ways be harmful to us are trying to suit their needs with their own positive intention. What do we do with that information, knowing that that love and good intention is at the root of it?
Well, one thing that helps is separate the person from their behavior.
Okay.
Okay. So if a person is doing something, we say hurt people hurt people.
Right.
So if somebody's doing something to you, they're probably trapped in that same behavior, whether they know it or aware of it or not. Because at its essence, we're all sparks of the divine at its essence. But again, on the surface, we act out many different influences. So it's like when we can look at that person as a person, even accept the person, but not the behavior. Because you still have to take care of yourself. So you don't want to allow behavior that you see as destructive or harmful to take charge of you. The other thing that I would say is not to take other people's behavior personally. Yeah, because people don't do things because of other people. Other people are just an occasion for me to express myself.
Other people are just an occasion for me to express myself.
Yeah. And how, and at some level, a stand-in for me.
A stand-in for me.
Yes. Because what I see, what irritates me the most in other people are things that I have not made peace with inside of myself. You know the old saying, I hate a liar or a thief, right? What am I saying? I hate the part of me that lies and steals. You know? So it's easier for me to point the finger out there than to look inside and say, let me do something with this, so I won't, so I can have some peace.
Right. Right. And so let me ask you this. Is that in some ways connected to, in one way or another, practicing non-attachment? So like not attaching ourselves to the behavior of others, because oftentimes we use the behavior of others as like a validation or not of ourselves. So we often find ourselves seeking validation.
Yes.
So when someone isn't treating us fairly in our view, it makes us sometimes look at ourselves differently. Like, well, what is it about me that this person, isn't treating me right?
Yeah.
Right. So oftentimes if we're attaching ourselves to what we're looking for in a relationship with someone, for instance, whether it be a friendship or whatever, and we don't get that, it can often bring us down because of what we were looking for, what we were seeking to attach ourselves to in that person's behavior.
Looking for external validation.
Yeah.
So I have a mindset. Let's say I'm hurt. So I want to see everybody as a threat to me. So that's the mindset, the perception. That's where perception starts at. I see everybody as trying to do something to me, coming at me or whatever. And as opposed to defining what happens with me and to me by what's inside of me, which takes a little bit more being still, which takes a little more faith, a little more courage. I mean, it's blaming others is convenient, but it's generally not healthy.
Right.
Like I say, the things that concern me most are the things that are inside of me. And that's what I have charge over. And my world will reflect, my world will reflect my view of and relationship with me, the deeper parts of me. Part of what happens in the world today, we're so overstimulated and we have so many things coming at us all the time that it's very easy to go through this life without knowing who you really are. You know, because somebody's telling you how to dress and what to eat and how to spend your money and what to value and what not to like. You know, all these influences are coming at you all the time. And if you're making judgments based on those, that can be a big distraction. But as you say, the more we become less attached to those influences, the more we can get to the more enduring, eternal parts of ourselves. Because remember, we're energy that's manifesting in the physical in this time period for a short time. Let's say 50 to 100 years, whatever. But as an entity, as an energy, as a spirit, there's no beginning or end. So you can say, oh, well, man's been on this earth 10,000 years. That's just a drop in the bucket. You know, that's just a drop in the bucket. So what do I do? Do I just relate to this stimulation that comes in the present moment that keeps me outside of myself, or do I make attempts to go deeper and get out of the certainty, the control, the illusion of control that comes from all this external knowing, to the place inside that requires a little more humility, a little more faith, and hopefully, and definitely more compassion.
I'm glad that you said that, because one thing that has become very common, especially in the social media world, is trying to identify different types of people in order to protect ourselves. So everyone thinks they know how to spot a narcissist. Everyone thinks they know how to spot a manipulator or this type of person and that type of person. I guess my first question is, do you think that that has any value at all in trying to identify these characteristics of a person that can come into our lives and wreak havoc?
Well, again, it's what you focus on, you help to empower. So if I focus on the things that I think about you are deficits or problems, I'm just feeding that, as opposed to focus on the parts of you that I think are healthy and enduring, and we can connect around those. I'll tell you another thing too. This is just my theory, but anything that's in any of us is in all of us to one degree or another. And this thing about being right, you know, we use to validate ourselves and separate ourselves. But at some level, we're all the same. So I'm saying we all have some narcissists in us. It just depends on what you do. Do you let the narcissist in you be in charge?
Yeah.
Or do you let the deeper part of you that's more connected to the universe, where there's more compassion, where there's more love, where there's more understanding, do you let that part be in charge, or do you let that little scared, self-centered part that's called a narcissist, that may have, and if you understand the development of that person, you may understand how they got that way. They had to fend for themselves. They weren't nurtured in certain ways. So it's a logical, that's developed out of a logical set of circumstances. So you could have compassion for them and connect to the part of them that is more similar to you. and said, they're just trying to be okay too.
Yeah.
I may not approve of the way that they're trying to do it, but they're just trying to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that, because I was going to ask you to go back to something that you said, which was about accepting the person but rejecting the behavior. And it's like in practice, like what does that look like? And so in your words, it's really making an attempt to connect to the person,
Yeah.
and not, connecting to their behavior. I mean, at some point I would think that depending on where the person is in their journey and where you are, it may become necessary to separate yourself from the person as well. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have the ability to see them for who they are beyond their behavior.
Exactly. You have a buddy, who keeps borrowing money from you and don't pay.
Yeah.
So you may forgive that person for that behavior. I mean, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But you don't lend them no more money.
Right.
You keep some boundaries and some limits, because that helps you to be better and gives them clear feedback about that.
Right.
So I can forgive them, but not participate in the behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to go ahead. You were about to say something else?
I remember talking to several people this week about their relationships with parents who they felt didn't give them what they needed for whatever reason. And it usually is a reason. But at the same time, you could say, what I tried to do is reinforce them. They can love that parent, even though that parent was injurious to them, So, because if you spend your time thinking about, I'm not going to be like my mother, I'm not going to be like my father, the brain don't recognize that not. All it knows is you wake up one morning and you figure, damn, I'm just like him or her.
Yeah.
It may not manifest the same way, but I'm just like, because that's what you've been focusing on.
Yeah. Yeah. It took me a long time on that one. But what I was eventually able to do, because I talk about my relationship with my late father often. But one of the things I was able to do is to go beyond trying to reject, the thought of me looking like the negative part of his behavior, right? And repeating the negative parts of his behavior. But what I was able to do was connect to the good in him.
Yes.
And so when I reflect on who he really, was while he was here in this world, is that, there's a lot in him that I connect to that's a lot of good.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what I reflect on.
Yeah.
And
you have that choice. The one thing you get on this planet is you get free will. So you have a choice whether you want to look at the darkness or you want to look at the light. Again, hurt people. So if he's injured and he functions some way that is not healthy all the time, you can have compassion for him.
Yeah.
You can have compassion for him, and as you say, focus on that which he produced that was good. Because none of us is all one way or the other.
Yeah. I wanted to end on this thought, something else that you dropped on me a few months ago that just like, wow, yeah, which was we're every age that we've ever been. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, and not even looking at other people now, but looking at ourselves, right? So going beyond trying to analyze, the good in other people, but even within ourselves, when we realize that 12-year-old is still here, that 17-year-old, that 24, 25-year-old is still here. So could you expound on that thought a little?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you that my hero is about 4 years old, and he's standing by a desk, and there's like a boat or something on the desk or whatever. That was me at 4. When you come here, you're fresh, you're open, and just looking at that, he's my idol. I want to be more like him, as opposed to the person who has become more jaded in some ways
Yes.
with experience like that. Yeah. So all of us have all of those energies in us from all those time periods and all of those experiences. The issue is they're all there and they're all trying to be helpful in some way.
Okay.
Okay. They all are not necessarily mature. They are all not necessarily balanced or in a good place like that. So it's our job to the self. And like I said, when I'm talking about being still, I'm talking about being in touch with this, with the self, is to appreciate and love on all of those parts, you know, and give them, how should I say, and in many cases retire them.
Okay.
So that they're not, you don't need the 15-year-old part of you being in charge. Mm-hmm. And every time somebody says something you don't like, you get huffy. Mm-hmm. I mean, we see that all the time, you know, in the news and politics and stuff, you know, folks, you see, what is he doing? So that's really a 13-year-old in a 74-year-old body, mm-hmm. you know? So we want to honor those parts of ourselves and nurture them, realize that they're there, but not let them be in charge. Because again, you want the central part of you, the self, the part that's more eternal, the part that's connected to the divine, to be in charge. And the other parts, you know, they may, you know, lead this little piece or lead that little piece as appropriate. But you want to have teamwork.
Yeah.
Not just to have a little scared part, a hurt or offended part, taking care of you in their way, but in ways that may not be healthy for the whole of you.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I guess as we recognize that within ourselves, we also recognize that the same thing is going on inside other people as well.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So again, remember junior high school, and it was, you know, the rule was if you bumped in somebody, stepped on somebody's shoes, you know, it could blow up real quickly, you know. Those that let that part stay in charge, how should I say? Many of the ones who let that part stay in charge didn't make it too far into adulthood, you know, because conflicts always come up, you know, and if that's how you handle them with violence, eventually, you know, that's going to take its toll like that. So, you know, the task is to have the courage to let go of some of those old ways of being, because it takes courage to intentionally change and to move forward to your higher values, And if your values are not any higher at 40 than they were at 20, if they haven't evolved some, then you might want to do a little soul searching, you know, or even get some help with some soul searching.
Yeah. There it is. Cool. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice.